The wheat fields of Woolpit shimmered under an autumn sun, golden stalks swaying like a restless crowd. It was the 12th century, a time when the English countryside hummed with superstition and the scent of earthbound miracles. The villagers worked in rhythm, scythes carving arcs through the grain, their laughter thin and fleeting against the vast Suffolk sky. But when the harvesters stumbled upon the pit, a sunken hollow veiled by brambles, their blades stilled. Inside, two children huddled, their skin the color of moss after rain. The girl's eyes were wide, unblinking, as if she'd witnessed the unraveling of the world. Her brother clung to her, trembling, their clothes woven from a fabric none recognized, iridescent, seamless, alien. When the villagers reached for them, the children recoiled, emitting guttural cries that dissolved into whimpers. Their language was a discordant melody, vowels sharp as flint. They refused bread, ale, meat, until someone brought raw beans, still in their pods. The girl seized them, devouring the green flesh with a desperation that bordered on sacred. Word spread like wildfire. A lord from the neighboring manor took them in, his curiosity piqued by rumors of fairy folk. But these were no ethereal sprites. Their green hue faded slowly, like ink washed from parchment, as they acclimated to earthly food. The boy, frail and listless, withered within months. The girl survived. She learned English, her voice shedding its strangeness like a snakeskin. When asked where they'd come from, she described a twilight realm where the sun never rose, where all dwelled in perpetual dusk, and where a distant chime had led them into the blinding light of Woolpit's fields. The villagers whispered of portals, of St. Martin's Land, a Christianized gloss on something older, darker. But the girl's tale gnawed at them. Had these children slipped through a crack in God's creation? Were they refugees from a dying world, or harbingers of a truth too vast to hold? The mystery festered, a thorn in the flesh of reason. To understand the terror and wonder the green children provoked, one must step into the medieval mind, a labyrinth where faith, folklore, and nascent science warred for dominion. The 12th century was an age of thresholds. Crusaders clashed with Saracens in Jerusalem. Scholars in Toledo translated Arabic texts into Latin, and the boundaries of Christendom stretched and frayed. Yet for all its expanding horizons, the medieval world remained a closed sphere, a nested hierarchy of heavens and hells, each layer governed by divine law. Earth was the center, but also the battleground, a place where angels and demons walked disguised, where the dead might linger as revenants, and where the walls between realms were thinner than parchment. The girl's description of her homeland, a land of perpetual twilight, resonated with ancient fears. Pagan Europe had long whispered of Anduin, Tir na Nog, and Elfheim, shadowy parallel worlds where time flowed differently, where a single night might span centuries. These were not mere stories, but maps of existential dread. To the church, such realms were heresy, remnants of a heathen imagination. Yet here was a baptized girl, her tongue now shaped by scripture, insisting her origins lay elsewhere. A place not hell, not heaven, but something uncategorizable. A place outside God's plan. Scholars of the time grappled with her claims. William of Newburgh, a chronicler prone to skepticism, recorded the incident with uneasy fascination. He theorized the children were of some other race of beings, perhaps from a subterranean world, a notion borrowed from Greco-Roman myths of Antipodeans. Others, like Ralph of Coggeshall, hinted at divine punishment. Had their parents sent them into the pit as offerings, or were they Adam's exiled kin, cursed to wander a sunless Eden? But the villagers needed no treatises. They saw the green girl's survival as a grim parable. Her brother's death, swift, silent, as if the very air poisoned him, mirrored their own fragility. Mortality was a constant companion. Infants perished in cradles, plagues culled whole families. Yet the boy's fate felt different. It suggested that some borders could not be crossed, that the body itself might rebel against alien soil. The girl, by contrast, adapted. Her skin lost its verdant stain, her speech softened into Saxon cadences. She married a local man, it was said, bore children, vanished into the ordinary. But her assimilation was no comfort. It only deepened the dread. If she could become one of them, what else might walk among them unseen? Medieval life was saturated with the invisible. Saints' relics pulsed with latent power. The host transubstantiated into flesh at Mass. The devil lurked in dreams, in storms, in the ache of a neighbor's envy. The green children forced Woolpit to confront a chilling possibility, that the cosmos was vaster, stranger than even scripture allowed. What if there were worlds beyond the firmament? What if God's creation included lands untouched by Adam's sin or damned by older, darker transgressions? The church's answer was swift. Clerics reframed the girl's twilight realm as Saint, Martin's land, grafting it onto the familiar geography of salvation. Martin, the saint of beggars and soldiers, became its patron, a tidy resolution that soothed doctrinal panic. Yet folklore resisted. In taverns, peasants swapped darker theories. They spoke of green men carved into church walls, pagan spirits of the harvest. They recalled the old tales of changelings, fairy children left in cradles to sicken and die. Had the girl's people sent her as a spy? Or were they refugees, fleeing a dying world as humanity once fled Eden? The psychological toll was palpable. Woolpit's discovery coincided with the reign of Henry II, a time of civil war and famine. The land itself seemed to revolt. Crops failed, wolves encroached, winters bit deeper. The green children became omens, their presence proof that the natural order was fracturing. To the medieval psyche, such a rupture was cosmic treason. If the earth could birth green-skinned strangers, what else might it harbor? What truths might lie buried, waiting to claw their way into the light? The girl's name, history claims, was Agnes, or perhaps it was Margaret. Records fray at the edges, but this much is certain. She survived. Her skin faded to the pallor of the living. Her tongue learned to shape psalms and gossip. Her body bore sons and daughters who carried no trace of her emerald past. To the villagers, this transformation was both miracle and betrayal. They wanted her to remain a cipher, a bridge between worlds. Instead, she became a mirror, reflecting their own fragility, their fear of being unmasked as strangers in a land they called home. Agnes's integration was not gentle. The Lord who took her in saw value in her strangeness. He paraded her before visiting bishops, a living curio to prove his piety, or perhaps his power to tame the uncanny. She spoke sparingly of her origins, and when pressed, her answers grew vague. "We heard bells," she'd murmur. "We followed them into the light." Was it the sound of Woolpit's church tower, a celestial summons, or the death knell of her own world? The villagers filled the silence with rumors. Some claimed she wept green tears at night. Others swore she whispered to the harvest moon in her lost tongue. But Agnes's true torment was subtler. To survive, she had to sever herself from the girl who emerged from the pit. Her memories of the Twilight Realm, its obsidian rivers, its luminescent fungi, the hum of a sunless sky, began to blur as if her new language lacked the syntax to hold them. When asked about her brother, she shut down, her face hardening into a mask. The boy's death had been swift, but his absence was a slow poison. In him, she'd lost not just kin, but the last witness to her truth. Without him, her past became a folktale, a fireside ghost. Medieval society had no room for existential ambiguity. A woman was either saint or sinner, noble or peasant, human or demon. Agnes occupied none of these categories. She married, yes, a guardsman named Richard Barr, whose lineage was unremarkable, but even her children sensed her distance. Mother was always elsewhere, one would later say, a phrase heavy with unspoken ache. In her later years, she wandered the fields at dusk, staring into the horizon as if waiting for a door only she could see. The silence of the vanished. By the time Agnes died, the mystery had ossified into legend. Chroniclers sanitized her story, scrubbing it of discomfort. William of Newburgh's account, written decades later, framed her as a divine oddity, a lesson in God's boundless creativity. Ralph of Coggeshall, ever the dramatist, hinted she'd been a penitent soul, banished from a purgatorial realm. But the truth, as it often does, curdled into something darker in the oral tradition. Peasants spoke of Agnes's curse. They claimed her children bore invisible marks, that their bloodline was tainted by the twilight. In reality, her descendants vanished into the anonymity of the feudal machine, plowmen, maids, soldiers. Yet the stigma lingered. To be from Woolpit was to be touched by the unknown, a tarnish no amount of holy water could cleanse. The village itself became a reluctant pilgrimage site. Travelers arrived seeking portals, prodding the earth with sticks, chanting psalms over the now overgrown pit. Local priests grew rich selling relics, twigs from the brambles, vials of mud, while quietly resenting the disruption. By the 14th century, Woolpit's fame had waned, its story diluted into a moral fable. Beware the seduction of the strange. Even the miraculous must bow to God. But the green children refused to die. They resurfaced in ballads, in alchemical texts, in whispered heresies during the Reformation. To the Enlightenment's rationalists, they were mere pathology. Orphans with chlorosis, a green sickness caused by malnutrition. Victorian spiritualists reimagined them as interdimensional travelers, proof of etheric realms. Each era molded the mystery to its anxieties, its hungers. The modern echo, alienation, and the myth of belonging. What does Agnes's story mean today? In an age of DNA analysis and quantum physics, her tale should feel archaic, yet it thrums with modern resonance. She is the ultimate immigrant, stripped of her language, her body remade by necessity. Her silence echoes in the stories of refugees who bury their pasts to survive, whose children inherit only fragments of their trauma. Her green skin, a metaphor for the otherness we all carry, the parts of ourselves that defy categorization. Psychologists might diagnose her with dissociative identity disorder, a mind shattered by displacement. Philosophers could frame her as a paradox, the self as palimpsest, endlessly rewritten by circumstance. But perhaps she is best understood through the lens of myth. Carl Jung wrote of the collective unconscious, the archetypes that haunt all human narratives. Agnes embodies the anima mundi, the world's soul, torn between realms, a reminder that every identity is provisional, every home a temporary shelter. The villagers' reactions, too, mirror our own. Their fear of Agnes's assimilation mirrors modern anxieties about cultural erosion, about the contamination of the familiar. Their compulsion to mythologize her speaks to a deeper truth. Humans cannot endure the unknown without narrative. We build stories like castles, desperate to keep the void at bay. The Green Children, in their eerie innocence, forced medieval Woolpit to confront the void and left behind a riddle that still whispers, "What lies beyond the edges of your world?" Theories in the shadows. The pit where the children were found is long gone, swallowed by centuries of plows and progress. Yet the theories persist, each a flickering lantern in the dark. Extraterrestrial. To modern ufologists, the Green Children are proto-abductees. Their skin tone, alien garb, and confusion under Earth's sun evoke classic Close Encounter lore. Medieval chroniclers noted their unearthly language, a guttural code some compare to the Roswell recordings of 1947. Skeptics scoff, but the parallels haunt. A sudden arrival, physiological dissonance, the boy's swift decline. Was he a failed hybrid? Did Agnes's fading pigment signal her body's rebellion against our atmosphere? The theory thrives because it mirrors our cosmic loneliness. In a galaxy of billions of stars, we ache to believe we are not the only castaways. Interdimensional. Quantum physicists offer a colder, stranger possibility. The girl's twilight realm could be a parallel universe, a bubble of reality where physical laws diverge, no sunlight, altered biochemistry. Her description of following bells into the light hints at a wormhole, a sonic trigger collapsing dimensional walls. Medieval villagers, hearing her account, might have crossed themselves. Today it invokes string theory's hidden dimensions. Both responses spring from the same dread, that our universe is not a sanctuary but a sieve, leaking truths we cannot bear. Psychological. Historians posit a grimmer truth. The 12th century was rife with famine. Chlorosis, a iron deficiency anemia tinting skin greenish, afflicted the malnourished. The children might have been Flemish orphans, displaced by Henry II's ethnic cleansing of Suffolk's immigrant weavers. Their alien language, a Dutch dialect. The Twilight Realm, a trauma-induced hallucination as they starved in wolf-haunted woods. This theory reduces the mystery to pathology, yet it unnerves most. For if Agnes's saga is merely a parable of war and displacement, then her story is not medieval. It is eternal, the silence between. Some truths evade categories. Folklorists note that green symbolizes liminality in myth, the forest's edge, the veil between life and death. In Celtic lore, green-skinned beings were guides to the other world. Agnes and her brother might have been ritual figures, sacrificial actors in a pagan rite erased by time. Or perhaps they were storytellers, their tale a dark fairy tale weaponized by history. The most unsettling theory, that they were exactly what they claimed. Why the story endures. Every era molds the Green Children to its obsessions. Medieval chroniclers saw divine judgment, Victorian spectral romance. Today they are memes, screen-printed on t-shirts beside aliens' arrows. Yet their power lies deeper. They are a Rorschach blot for the human psyche, reflecting our terror of the uncategorizable. In 1966, a Suffolk farmer claimed to hear unearthly wails near Woolpit's church. He found nothing. In 2013, a tech CEO funded a ground-penetrating radar scan of the village, seeking hidden tunnels. It revealed only root and stone. These futile quests are telling. We need the children to be real for their mystery to resist solution. In a world stripped of wonder by algorithms and satellites, they are a last enclave of the inexplicable. Agnes's true legacy is her silence. She left no grave, no diary, only a lineage absorbed into the anonymous masses. Her descendants, if they exist, likely know nothing of their luminous ancestry. Yet her anonymity is the point. She is every migrant who sheds their past to survive, every soul who carries a private cosmos within. Her story endures not as a puzzle to solve, but as a mirror. What do we see staring back? Our fear of the other, or our fear of the other in ourselves? Embracing the unknowable. We live in an age of over-explanation. DNA tests parse our ancestry into percentages. Telescopes pierce the birth of stars. Mystery is commodified, packaged into podcasts and listicles. The green children rebel against this. They refuse closure. Philosopher Timothy Morton calls such enigmas hyper-objects, phenomena too vast, too ancient, too complex to fathom. Climate change, capitalism, the passage of time. The green children, in their way, are hyper-objects. They force us to confront the limits of our understanding, to stand humbled before the abyss. There is a term in Japanese aesthetics, yugen. It speaks to the profound, haunting beauty of the unknowable, the moon veiled by mist, a shadow in a distant forest. Agnes's tale is an exercise in yugen. It invites us to relinquish the addiction to answers, to find solace in the question itself. In the end, the children's greatest lesson is one of kinship. They are not relics, but reflections. Their lost world, real or imagined, mirrors our own fragile planet, a place of twilight edges and vanishing truths. As ecosystems collapse and cultures erode, we too may soon wander, green-skinned and trembling, into a future that devours our past. The pit in Woolpit is empty now, but lean close and you might hear it, a faint hum like a bell ringing under the earth, a reminder that not all doors close, that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but to be carried, like a lantern, like a curse, like a child, into the dark. The green children of Woolpit remain a testament to the human dance with the unknown, a dance that transcends time, a melody without resolution. In their silence they speak volumes. To be alive is to dwell in the liminal, to find grace in the unanswered.